Movie and TV comic speculation is totally out of control. What is going on, YouTube? I am your host, Lawrence, over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and like always, welcome back to the show. Today is everybody's favorite video. It is the Hot 10 Comics of the Week breakdown, where I take the 10 hottest comics according to the Key Collector app, and I break them down for you guys, letting you know which books I'm buying and which books, of course, I'm staying away from, but most importantly, I tell you why. With that said, if you're not a current subscriber, hit that sub button, smash the like button for me because it always helps the channel out. And with that said, let's get into this week's breakdown. Starting off the list at number 10 this week is a big Bronze Age key. It is a copy of Tomb of Dracula #1 and the first appearance of Dracula in comics. This version of Dracula was inspired by Bram Stoker's classic character. And last week we had a CGC 9.0 selling for $680, up 9% over the average. Then we had a CGC 8.0 sale of $380, up only 1% over the average. Now, if you guys know me, I always say this. There's about 10 books from the Bronze Age I really want to own that I think are must-haves in my collection. Unfortunately, this is not one of them. However, this is a book I would buy if I could get it for the right price. And 9.0 for almost $700 to me seems like a lot of money to spend on this book. And I think an 8.0 for around $400 is also way too much money I want to spend on this character right here. If you could find a raw copy for a deal, I'd be all over it. Other than that, I'm staying away. Coming in at the 9th spot this week is a copy of Uncanny X-Men number 266 and the second appearance of Gambit and his first cover appearance. But this is what I'd like to call the money book. And last week we had a CGC 9.6 selling for $250, up 5% over the average. Then we had a CGC 9.2 sale of only $190, up 11% over the average. It feels like this book has been on the list for the better part of this year, at least for 6 months. Yes, it's an awesome book. I want to own it in my collection, but why am I spending $190 on a 9 point whatever when I can go ahead and get this book for around $100 to $150 in the raw form? I always say this, if I want to own this book in a 9.8, I want to spend $500 or less. So if you can find one in the grade, I'd be all for it. Other than that, I'm staying away. Sliding down to number 8 this week is a copy of Venom number 3 and the first appearance of Null, the creator of the alien symbiote race. And last week we had a CGC 9.8 dipping to $260, up 21% still though over the average. This book was $320, then $300, then $280. We're now down to $260. I've been saying all along I want to own this book for around $200 in a 9.8. When it gets there, I'd be a buyer. Other than that, I'd probably get myself a raw copy, or hell, if they have it, a trade paperback or something along those lines for this Venom series, I'd be all over that. After a short hiatus at number 7 and back on the list, it is a copy of Star Wars #1 and the first appearance of the original Star Wars characters. And last week we had a monster sale, a CGC 9.8 selling for $4,800, up an insane 40% over the average. Then we had a CGC 8.5 sale of $285, up 3% over the average. I say this all the time with this book. If you're a massive Star Wars fan, it is a must-own book. With that said, I'm not spending almost $5K on a 9.8. I don't see the value in that, unless, hell, they let you star on one of the new Disney Plus shows. Other than that, I like to own right an 8.0 between a 9.0 for a deal. If not, if I can't find one, I just want to buy a raw copy just to have in the collection, only if I'm a big Star Wars fan. If you're not, why are you even buying this book in the first place? Coming in at number 6 this week is a new book to this list. It is a copy of Something's Killing the Children #1 and the first appearance of Erica Slaughter. And last week we had a CGC 9.8 selling for $750, up 23% over the average. Then we had a CGC 9.4 sale of $350, up 12% over the average. I'm going to say this, when we're talking about modern books, you guys know I only want to own them in a 9.8, but $750 for this book to me is a lot of coin. Great series, great reads. Why spend all that money? We can go out and get a trade paperback and read this storyline. If you're a massive fan of this book, maybe you want to own it in 9.8. For me, I can't see coughing up that kind of money on this book. Even for a 9.4, $350, I don't see the value. Buy the storyline, not the grade. While the moderns are really heating up at number 5, it is a copy of Young Avengers number 1 and the first team appearance of the Young Avengers, Kate Bishop, Patriot, Asgardian, also known as Wiccan, Hulkling, and Iron Lad. And last week we had a CGC 9.8 selling for $252, but only up 1% over the average. Years ago, 2020, 2021, this book got super hot, then it lost all of its value. I don't think $250 is that bad for a 9.8. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But with that said, why is this book on this list right now? Did we get some new news? The last I heard, they canceled the Young Avengers movie, so I'd like to hear from all of you out there right now. Comment down below, why is this book on this list? Am I missing something? You guys know I'm not into buying this book right here, even though I don't think that $250 is that bad. If it gets down to $200, I'd be a buyer. Climbing its way to number 4 this week is one of my favorite books of all time. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 252 and the first appearance of the black symbiote costume in the Amazing Spider-Man title. And last week we had a CGC 9.6 selling for $361 but flat against the average. Then we had a CGC 9.4 sale for $390, up an insane 54% over the average. You guys heard that right. We had a 9.4 outselling a 9.6. When's the last time that happened? Regardless, guys, this is a must-own book for any comic book collection, any symbiote fan, and especially every Spider-Man fan. But with that said, you can still find this book raw anywhere between $125 to $175. That's really what I want to spend. Hell, if you could find one for $200 that really presents nice, I'd be all over it. Other than that, I can't see paying this amount of money for this book with all the copies out there. Coming in at the 3 spot this week is some more Spider-Man goodness. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 238 and the first appearance of the Hobgoblin and some classic John Romita Jr. goodness. And last week we had a CGC 9.8 selling for $1,500, up 3% over the average. Then we had a CGC 9.2 sale of $405, up a crazy 18% over the average. You guys know I love this book. I love the Hobgoblin, love Spider-Man, Copper Keys, that's what I grew up with, but $1,500 for a 9.8 with all the copies out there that still could be had. I know a lot of them are missing their tattoos, but to me, guys, it's just way too much money to spend. Hell, even a 9 point something for $400, still too much money for me. I'd rather own the book raw in a nice presenting grade just to have it in the collection. If you're a great whore and you want to spend the money in this book, be my guest. I'd rather put it towards a bigger key. This is all I have to say about what's at number 2 this week.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Haha, you guessed it. It is a copy of Incredible Hulk number 340 and this classic cover by Todd McFarlane. And last week we had a CGC 9.6 selling for an insane $500, up a crazy 42% over the average. Then we had a CGC 8.5 sale for only $200, up 16% over the average. I'm going to say this to you guys. I love this book. I love this cover. I say it every week, and it's about time we get this book off the list, even though we all love this book. Buy this book raw, please. You're always going to get a better deal on it just to own the book. I don't want to buy the grade on some of these Copper Keys. I don't see the value in it. Awesome book, a must own, but let's be honest, let's not overspend for what this book is. Finally, at the top spot again this week, this book will not go away. It is super hot. It is a copy of Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 8 and the origin of the black symbiote costume.
This is something else.
And last week, we had a CGC 9.8 selling for $550, up 10% over the average. You guys know, again, I love this book. I say it every week. And when it gets to 500, if you can find one for a 9.8, be a buyer. I think it's worth it around $500 for a lot of these Copper Keys. With that said, guys, I'm not spending $550. I just want to own the book for what it is, a classic storyline and what has gone on to become a lot of Spider-Man fans' favorite comics and storyline in their collection. With that said, I'm not a buyer at $550, 9.8, 500 or over, or just get a raw copy like I just said. Hope you guys enjoyed the list. A lot of great books on this list. The one thing you're going to notice, I didn't give any of these books a thumbs up. You heard the buzzer for all of them. That doesn't mean I don't want to own these books. I've said that before. But if I had to give you a best buy of the week for these books right here, I'd probably be going with either ASM 252 or ASM 238. Right here, I'm going to say ASM 238 only because the rarity factor with the tattoos being there or not present makes a big deal. With that said, you know I only want to own this book complete and I want to get it for a deal. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.